Okay, we're done now. Oh, right. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Hopefully, it's pouring with rain where we are in Kent, but we'll go on. We'll quickly go on the news and briefly go on yesterday. Basically, those who've done the calendars, I've written my calendar. There's not a lot out. I think there's retail sales out in Europe at 9 o'clock, but basically the same as those of you who hang on, I said midnight. The
Bank of England speech at 10.
There is actually, which I found out late because someone told me, we do have Mr. Bailey, who is the chairman of Bank of England, at 8:30. I didn't have on any calendar. What lucky for me, Live Sport and a few other people send me emails. He's up before Mr. Broadbent at 10 a.m. Yeah, obviously Broadbent is he number 2 at the Bank of England? But anyway, Bailey's talking first, and obviously going back to Mr. Sunak yesterday, he said the recession's going to be here longer, it's going to get worse before it's better. Obviously, that was a big play yesterday because that moved the pound 40 or 50 ticks, just on that news. He wasn't due to speak, but he came out and said that. I don't think you'd find Christine Lagarde or Mr. Powell ever saying that it's going to get worse before it gets better. I think they'll use different words. But that immediately moved the FTSE of 30 ticks, if you're watching it this afternoon, and the pound obviously got absolutely butchered, and it was being butchered anyway. Yeah. So the same thing to me today. We do have Bailey at 8:30, Broadbent at 10. The Fed will go through this. There are 7 Fed members speaking this afternoon. Mr. Bostic, Mr. Brainard, Mr. Rosengruen, Mr. Kaskari, Mr. Kaplan, I think it's Miss Meister and Mr. George. Yeah, they will be speaking from I think 3 o'clock onwards. And at the moment, they're obviously all saying their pieces. Obviously, they're all probably going to mention how Biden's going to fund his $3 trillion Care Act, Furlough Act, whatever we're going to call it. And also, he's speaking on Friday. Well, not Friday, Thursday, just before Powell speaks at 5:30. That's heading to my week. That's where I think all the week is. Yeah, we're going to whack on the screen here, mainly for 2 reasons. One of the reasons that I was guilty of yesterday, and I put the FTSE on there on the screen. I'm short anyway, but I sold the FTSE. We're looking at the POC and value high. Can you see both those screens?
Yep.
You know, I'll tell you, my technical skills are improving so much. I will actually know what I'm doing in about 5 years' time, but then I'll be retired on the beach somewhere, hopefully. But that's life. Yeah. Again, we look at the POC, the FTSE there. That's been there all morning. That was at 6. It was at 6,814. I sold it at 12. I got my stop in at 20 ticks. Yeah, and the value there. And in all fairness, I know I taught a few people yesterday about the Fibonacci. The market profile has been good, in so much where you put your stops and then that's where it breaks. What I did yesterday, and I said to Harry a minute ago, when Wall Street opened at 2:30, and I know some of you were trading and such, I anticipated what I thought was going to happen to the Wall Street. It was about 350 points down, and obviously I wasn't very bullish. Yeah, Wall Street rallied, was it 200 points in 4 minutes? I knew we always say at 8 o'clock and at 2:30 we expect markets to move. Yeah. However, in anticipation of the market, I sold Wall Street. I think I stopped myself out in about 4 seconds flat. 30 ticks. I sold it again, and another 30 ticks. And the whole thing being is that we are looking at price action. We have to believe in the price actions. You cannot, I know Ray's an old hand here. We do have views where we think markets are going, but at the market with the volatility, and we saw the swings yesterday. What happened between 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock to move Wall Street down almost 300 points, and then at 2:30 to 3 o'clock, move it back 200 points. There's no news out. Yeah, we have to rely on supply and demand, people buying whatever. So the same thing, as we're coming in to the 8 o'clock opening, we read all the news. Most of you are on James May's email. I think I sent it out to everyone. I hope you've got it. That basically gives us a miss of what happens overnight. Most of it wasn't negative, but wasn't also positive. It's basically nothing was going on. Yeah. And they also expect today to be a fairly quiet day. So in theory, when we're going round about it, you could say the FTSE, although we don't predict it, could have a fairly quiet range today. The only thing that's going to change that is possibly if Mr. Bailey, as in Mr. Tempson yesterday, mentions the threat of negative rates. Remember the person from the Bank of England yesterday? Did Tempson, I always pronounce his name wrong, begins with a T and ends in an N, and then it's got about 8 letters. So he mentioned it 2 or 3 times, but the market was already down before that, so because that was obviously leaked. So Bailey mentioned negative rate, which he did in the back of October, November last year, remember? And then it obviously negated as we came into Christmas. And if he mentions it, and then Broadbent mentioned it as such, we may get a rally in the FTSE, because obviously negative rate, we've got to put our money somewhere. Also, the other way around, Mr. Sulik said that the market is in for a slightly worse place to be before it gets better. We may see that the other way with the FTSE, that if he's cutting rates, why is he cutting rates? Because the market's in for a bit of a crap time. Yeah. So again, with what we got there, 4 minutes to prepare yourself. I'm looking at the FTSE again. The great time frame, we've got it up there. Obviously, those of you who are new, hang on, I just got to get. Someone's trying to get into the group. Oh. Actually, there's about 5 people getting into the group. When I said my IT skills were good, yeah, they're still pretty terrible, really. But I just realised there's 7 people trying to get into the room. I do apologise for not seeing that, everyone, but that's life. Anyway, as we come into the FTSE, we're going to look at it. We've got 2 minutes to go. Most of you trade what you want. The DAX was pretty violent yesterday, and I think for new things, I looked at the DAX and made money. I stayed short, but then again, I traded yesterday. The same thing here. I've got a trade in the FTSE where I'm short. The system is scalping. You have your hand in your mouth, and we're looking for it to move at 8 o'clock. I put a trade. I put a stop in. The reason I've done that, it's slightly different to when you trade. I'm just going to try and get this to somebody who can't get into the group. Right. Admit, more people trying to come in. I do say that it's hard. We say we open at 7:50. If people start coming in about 2 minutes beforehand, you should know now my internet skills. I'm not very good at multitasking. Anyway, right, we're going to look at the FTSE. Again, we probably say the POC is at 16, so therefore we could see a few stops at 16 to push it up. As we said before, people are aware of market profile, and right at the open, we do expect to get a move. I'm a believer in the market POC, so I'll put my stop in there to go short there at the level it's 14 at 7 o'clock. Obviously, it shows me there I'm short at 12. The stops are 20 ticks higher. So we wait and see what goes on. We look at the other indices as such, they're all on a slightly positive foot this morning. Yeah. I think we go. So the FTSE is almost unchanged, doesn't say a lot, but we wait and see where we go at 8 o'clock. And we're almost bang on the button there, and we should see a movement. I've got on a 2-minute chart. You can have it on a whatever you want, but we expect to see that price to go with it. So we do try and advise people, rather than look at the candle, which we see in the last 2 minutes has moved 4, 5, 6 ticks. We do expect that in the first 20 seconds, probably a 10, 15 tick move of the FTSE. We're also very much aware, as we alluded to earlier on, that Mr. Bailey, Chairman of the Bank of England, is speaking at 8:30, which is only half an hour away. Those of you who are new to market profile, hopefully we should get the letter Q up in a minute, and that will be 8 to 8:30. We're seeing at the moment, we've seen the volatility here very quick. And also, I did say to someone on here, I think Charlie's on here, the volume at the moment in the FTSE and through the other indices was very low yesterday. We had a very big volume the last week, start of the year, which kept things going. But as we saw yesterday, some of the prices, the speed at which the prices move are very fast. That, to me, tells us that people aren't too bothered about trading at the moment and find it a bit too volatile to trade. We've just seen that FTSE, look, that FTSE has just rallied, what, 20 ticks, close to my stop. We went straight through the POC, the value high of 18. If we go through the 18, or we're very close to, I say we probably haven't broken that value high yet. But we saw that is price action to you. And all that is on the opening there is basically people coming in fairly happy with the market. I think James Fayon on his email that he sent out there, was fairly bullish but quiet. But I mean, all you need there, because we've got such thin volume, such thin liquidity, is that someone would probably come in there and probably only bought, probably £100 a lot. Yeah. So you look at that candle 2 minutes, it's a straight line up. Yeah, on the opening, and we come all the way back down in what, 60 seconds? Yeah. If we put it in this, we really silly. Let's put it on a minute chart, and we see. I mean, that to me, that candle here, the green candle from here up to we're up to 22. Yeah, that's insanity. That probably was also people who are very tight. As you said before, I sold it at 12 there. My stop was a 26 stop, which was a trade rather than the scalp. Had I scalped it and sold it at 8 o'clock, I think I'd have stopped myself out. Because we have tighter stops on the scalps, yeah? I didn't because I wanted to sell it. And look at this line, it's straight line up and straight line down. And then we get that in the opening. And the reason we get that in the opening is simple supply and demand. Those people who wanted to be short were probably already short because of the POC. We got up here about 7 o'clock, yeah? And there was nothing there. And reality, that tells you how silly the market is, yeah? Very good indicator there, yeah? Let's get it back on a proper level. 15 minutes and start, and again, he still looks stupid there anyway. And we're back hanging around the POC. Those of you who look at the market profile, I would think that and before Bailey speaks, we could be stuck in this range for the next 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Because in theory, if we are trading, why put a position on before Andrew Bailey talks? He hasn't spoken this year yet. One of his colleagues mentioned negative rates yesterday, and the same thing. If you've got a position in the market, I have now. The market at 8.25 is hopefully a bit lower. I'll probably move my stop down to scratch because I would say if Andrew Bailey does mention negative rates, you would expect the FTSE to rally. Does that make sense? I think we allude to that. So in theory, coming again. The only reason really is someone sort of price action to buy it. You have to be very quick to take probably 10 ticks, but it was exactly back down to where it was 8 o'clock. Yeah, you know let's update here if we can. The market profile is a bit slow today, and one of the problems on this trader made it is slower, but hopefully we're meeting them today, and we still haven't got Q up there. But the market profile won't trade up, so we're used to it. So we'll go from there. So that's what we've got. Again, those of you who are coming a bit later, there's not a lot of meat on the bone today. I know James face put it out there. We do have Mr. Bailey of the Bank of America game at 8:30, Broadbent at 10, and there are 7 Fed people talking this afternoon. Mr. Bossy spoke yesterday, Mr. Brainard, Rosengren, Kaskari, Kaplan, Meister, and George. They probably want to get their pennies worth in because of the fact that it's only, what day is it today, with 8 days before Mr. Biden takes over. The other things I think I read in one of James's emails is that I don't think that Biden wants to impeach Mr. Trump before he takes over, because that's going to give Trump all the press that Trump wants. Okay, but that kind of isn't moving the market anyway, so we go from there. The same thing today. I think we're going to be patient today, and if the market doesn't move, as someone said to me this morning, you may not trade today. That's a brave call to make before 8 o'clock. But on news-wise and fundamental-wise, there isn't a lot of meat on the bone to trade. Those of you, I think a few people yesterday were guilty of overtrading, and I think Imran, you said, I think we put it under the word boredom.
Yeah.
And it's the hardest trading with day trading. We come into it, use your market profile, use your charts and everything else, and use your news server. Just because it might be moving 10, 15 ticks, as we saw there on that FTSE, you could have been sucked in very clearly once it broke that point of control, to be long. And now we're below the point of control, so you, in theory, could be short. So you could have been chucked out and spat out in the space of 30 seconds. Yep. So let's be patient when we trade. Okay, it's a short one today because there's no real news out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hands in your bum time, I think, and wait till Mr. Bailey speaks at 8:30 and we go from there. There's nothing out in the US, so you do your homework. The only thing I think is the important one is probably at 3 o'clock we have the US JOLTS job review. And obviously that might be fairly interesting because non-farm payroll was awful, ADP was awful, and maybe JOLTS may be awful. But remember on that figure Friday, non-farm payroll, the market didn't do anything. It came back, if anything. So we'll wait for that. But that's out at 3 o'clock. All right, okay. Everyone have a good day. And I think in the same thing, cut your size down. There's hardly anything trading today. Don't let Tuesday ruin your week. We know on Thursday we've got Powell and we've got Biden talking about 3 trillion. The meat on the bone is probably Wednesday and Thursday.
Got you.
All right, okay. Imran, we'll do our 1-to-1 in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Cheers. Have a good day.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks.